Good afternoon po sa lahat. Hintayin lang po natin makakonect yung iba para po makapagsimula na tayo.
Ma'am, restart ko lang, ma'am, ah. Ma'am, restart ko lang po. Change po tayo.
Hello.
Hi, ma'am.
Okay. Bakit? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. As of now, we have 1,361 na nakapasok na po sa ating webinar session. So for today, this webinar is hosted by PLAI Central Luzon in partnership with Regalo Touching Lives. This seminar is entitled Drafting Library Policy Guidelines Under the New Normal. Before we go further, here are some reminders, announcements, and etiquettes for everybody. The webinar will be recorded. All attendees will be on mute and video off mode, except for the moderator and resource speaker to ensure clear video streaming. Use of the chat box to greet or express what you feel is open for everybody. Don't interrupt the speaker. Please wait for the Q&A to ask questions. Q&A will be entertained at the end of the session. Link for online evaluation will be posted towards the end of the webinar. E-certificates will be sent via email. Your active participation throughout the session is important. Right now, may we request everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. Throughout the presentation, someone on the officers will be managing the chat functionality. You can also enter your comments in the chat box throughout the presentation. And to give us guidance throughout the webinar, let us bow our heads and place ourselves in the presence of the Lord, and this will be followed by singing our national anthem. Okay, for the Q&A, we will be using the menti.com. You just have to go to www.menti.com and key this code 795159. I repeat, it's 795159. Our technical support team will be the one to screen and collect the questions to be asked to our speaker. Once again, a pleasant good afternoon to all of us. This afternoon is an important milestone for all of information professionals because we are gathered here in this webinar to learn and acquire new knowledge about an aspect of library management, which is drafting library policy guidelines under the new normal. And to formally start our webinar, please watch the AVP of our Zealous Fly CLRC President, Ms. Amor Martin, to give her welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the first free webinar of Playa Central Luzon Region Librarians Council. This momentous event was made possible with regalo touching lives under the leadership of Mr. Carlos Eclevia. Our heartfelt thanks for your kind help and commitment. For without your relentless effort, Playa Central Luzon Region Council could not make this live webinar realize. To our conference chair, Madam Heidi, and to our moderator, Madam Pritilay, thank you so much in taking the challenge for the Council in organizing and leading this webinar. Our goals to serve, to reach out, and to give back again to the Prime members through this free webinar are sustained. To Sir Roy Calilong, dakal asalamat po for your kind heart and love to serve. You are one of the moving forces to keep everyone back on track. To the Playa Central Luzon Council officers, thank you for your commitment and support. We work as one in keeping our council afloat during this pandemic. Let us keep moving forward and rise above this crisis. We are all caught by surprise, and no one was ready. Librarians are beset with many questions like how to cope with the pandemic effects in our profession and in our own workplace. How do we get back to our library services and operations given the risk to our readers and library personnel? Should we open or keep our libraries closed? How should we serve our readers in cases of lockdown? Should we revise our policies or drop a new one? These are some of the many questions that we have to face and find solution amid this pandemic. Today, we are blessed and thankful to have our esteemed resource speaker, Professor Elvira Lapus, in accepting our invitation at a short notice. Dakal asalamat po. Your knowledge and wisdom are indeed a great help to us LIS professionals. Again, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Ma'am Amora, for that remarkable welcome to everybody. To give us an overview of the webinar topic and introduce our resource speaker for today, here is our PLY CLRC Vice President and Conference Chair, Ms. Heidi Cuenco.
Good afternoon, friends and colleagues. As we face the fourth industrial revolution, our libraries are now transitioning to the new normal. It means that we librarians need to embrace the challenges it entails, especially in performing our jobs and responsibilities in our respective libraries. In doing so, we need to prepare for the opening of library services for the best interest and safety of our library users. And so, this webinar is being conducted in partnership with Regalo Touching Lives in the hope that it may give you some baseline information in formulating or drafting your library policy guidelines under the so-called new normal. The objectives of the webinar are the following. Number one, understand the purpose of a policy guideline. Number two, identify problems or issues that require the development of policy guidelines. Number three, recognize issues or problems to be effectively dealt with by the creation of a policy guideline. Number four, establish policy guidelines development process. And last, prepare clear policy guidelines. And so, without further ado, may I introduce to you our resource speaker. She earned her Bachelor of Library Information Science in 1991 and her Master of Library Science in 2003 from the UP School of Library and Information Studies, where she is also appointed as part-time senior lecturer handling courses in Management of Library and Information Center, Collection Development and Management, and Records Management. In 2016, she was selected as an associate of the International Federation of Library Association and Institution, or IFLA, International Leaders Program 2 ILP2. IFLA ILP2 is a two-year program designed to increase the cohort of leaders who can effectively represent the wider library sector in the international arena. As part of her continuing engagement in the ILP2, she has advocated for libraries and their role in the achievement of the UN 2030 Agenda and 17 Sustainable Development Goals. She was the national president of the Philippine Librarians Association, or PLY, in 2015 to 16, and the Philippine Association of Academic Research Librarians in 2009. A member of the Executive Board of Congress of Southeast Asian Librarians, or CONSAL, she also sits in Professional Regulation Commission, Continuing Professional Development Council. Currently, she is the Deputy University Librarian of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, let us all virtually welcome our resource speaker, Ms. Elvira B. Lapus.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you to the Philippine Librarians Association Incorporated Central Luzon Region Librarians Council, and of course, Regalo Touching Lives for this opportunity to share with you, okay, some of the best practices we're having now here in the University of the Philippines with regards to dealing, okay, with this pandemic, this COVID-19 health crisis we're experiencing now. So these are indeed unprecedented times we're having, and who would have thought that we'll be experiencing this pandemic in this lifetime? So it has had an overwhelming effect on our lives, our workplaces, in the overall conduct of our routines. It's far different from how things were before this health crisis. It has caused widespread fear and uncertainty, and we are all affected by this crisis, both personally and professionally. And finding a cure, a vaccine, could not come any sooner. So today, allow me to share with you how we in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, gave it our best shot in trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy and regularity in the operations and programming of the library. Well, at least in some aspects of work performance and service delivery. And well, we were able to do this by drafting and developing policy guidelines that provide the roadmap for us as we proceed, okay, as a functioning unit of the university. Okay, so for this webinar, I divided my presentation into four major themes. First, um, let's go back to understanding what policy guidelines are in our libraries. And second, what are the impetus, the reasons, the rationale for the development of library policy guidelines? Do we need it now? As mentioned by our CELRC president, should we work on revising our existing policy guidelines? Number three, our third theme is developing policy guidelines as to what we should understand about its formulation, what topics should we cover, what are the very thing that should be in there with regards to dealing with this new normal in our libraries. And lastly, I will try to to share with you how we did it here in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, how we prepared, how we work on preparing this draft of the library policy guidelines. So let's do some library management review here. So how do we understand, or what are we supposed to understand with library policies? Library policies, according to Stewart and Moran, are the general statements of understanding, the channel our thinking, or that guides us uh, in our thinking towards future decision making. So policy guidelines are very important if we are to make decisions for the library, especially now, as I've said, no, in this extraordinary times, in this time of crisis, at this time of pandemic. Policies are statements that define the values of our organization, which in turn, this should help our administrators and our staff translate those values into service priorities according to LA. This will be our guide, okay, in presenting to our community of users why we are doing these things in our libraries. Okay, it will explain the reasons why we have such procedures. It will explain why we were working on such process. So these are policies. And simply put, policies establish a standard of service that can be easily understood by library users. So policies are those statements, okay, that will make it clear to our users, okay, why we are doing things, or why we are doing these things in our libraries. So, what should be the characteristics of good policies? Good policies should be implemented consistently. Hindi pwede na yung policies natin ay magkakaiba or contradictory. Okay? But policies should also be flexible enough so that when the need arises for it to be revised or changed, we can easily do it. Okay? And policies are different from rules and procedures wherein these rules and procedures are quite firm. Okay? So, kailangan palaging sundin. And this is most important, policy should be written. Okay? Dapat nakasulat. Dapat naiintindihan ng lahat. Dapat na ipapaalam sa lahat. Okay? So, what are we dealing with here anyway? Ano ba ang ating sitwasyon ngayon? Ano ba yung kailangan nating pagtuunan ng pansin? Hindi lang tayo basta nagsara ng library and that's it. Okay? Hindi natatapos o hindi tumitigil dapat yung ating trabaho. Hindi nawawala dapat yung ating function, okay, as the information resource center ng ating mga institusyon. So, but what is this situation we're dealing with now? More than 100 days ago, the whole Philippines was put in a state of calamity. Okay, exactly on March 16, 2020, our president placed the entire country in under a state of calamity due to these threats posed by COVID-19. But what is COVID-19? Bakit siya nakakatakot? Bakit natin kailangang maintindihan ano yung epekto nito sa atin, sa ating kalusugan, sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay? Okay, this coronavirus 2019 is described as an infectious disease caused by a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2, and this is a new strain of virus that was first detected in Wuhan, China, towards the end of 2019. No? So COVID-19 is known to target a person's respiratory system, and infected patients may show or exhibit symptoms such as fever, cough, shortness of breath, and in some cases, muscle pain and sore throat. And some doesn't show any symptoms at all, or those, sabi nga nila, yung mga asymptomatic. Okay. What's our bleak reality now with this current emergency crisis? Even with the guidelines of the interagency task force, this is our bleak reality now. I don't want to be too negative about this, but this is something that we all need to understand and we need to be prepared for. There might be no reliable and timely testing, okay, and contract tracing in place in time for the opening of our classes. For most higher education institution, this will be in August or in September. So, but even by that time, I don't think magkakaroon na po tayo ng reliable and timely testing and contract tracing. So, napakahirap po, kailangang pag-isipan if we are to open and go back to traditional classes. It is also unlikely that a vaccine will be developed, tested, and deployed anytime soon. Mukhang malabo pa po talaga na magkaroon ng gamot or ng vaccine para sa sakit na ito or sa virus na ito. And in most places here in the country, we are likely to experience periods of surge and decline, tataas, bababa yung bilang ng naapektado or maging COVID positive. And sad as it may be, flattening of the curve is really far from happening. And it is also likely that it'll take a long time, a real long time before we can go back to normal. Baka nga hindi na tayo makabalik dun sa dati. Okay? And that's our bleak reality now. So, What is this new normal? We have to understand this. Hindi lang sa trabaho, hindi lang sa kung saan tayo madalas nananatili noon bago pa itong pandemic na ito. We have to understand that this is the new normal that we're going to have in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools. So we need to be prepared, and we need to be able to make the necessary adjustments. Lahat po tayo mag-a-adjust with this new normal. So, what is this new normal? Again, for the past 100 days, dumaan na po tayo sa ECQ. Ang ibang lugar dumaan sa MECQ. Nandito tayo ngayon. Kami nandito sa MCR. We are in GCQ. There might be an MGCQ or the Modified General Community Quarantine. And then, our new normal, which, according to IITF, they described it as the emerging behaviors or situations and the minimum health standards that will be institutionalized in common or routine practices, and it will remain, okay, it will remain even after this pandemic, okay, or until that disease is totally eradicated. So ito na po yung mga paraan natin ng pamumuhay after ma-lift itong community quarantine, okay, kung saan napakalaking ang konsiderasyon na po ang ating kalusugan. It will become, or it should become, second nature to the general public, no, na magkaroon or sundin ano nga ba itong mga health standards na ito, okay, habang tayo ay nandito sa new normal. And to further discuss this, allow me to use this infographic by the Department of Health and the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, RITM, on how we are supposed to understand this new normal. I found this infographic quite, really informative, no? And it easily described for us or explained to us what will be the situation, or what will be the kind of or what will be the kind of life, okay, we'll be having in this new normal. 5 very important points here that we're in the new normal. Our concern really will be on reducing vulnerability, or yung paano tayo, okay, paano natin pangangalagaan ng ating sarili para hindi tayo magkaroon or igupo ng sakit na ito. Second is to reduce transmission. Paano maiiwasan yung pagkalat ng sakit or ng virus. Reduce contact, or yung ating na pong new normal ay kasama na yung mga bagay-bagay na kailangan nating gawin nang hindi masisiguro na tayo ay malayo o hindi malalapit sa kung sino man ang carrier nitong virus. At kung magkakaroon man o magkakasakit man nito, ay papanong maaalagaan at masisiguradong ligtas sa mas grabeng karamdaman. Okay, and then number 5 is to ensure governance and accountability. So what are we supposed to be doing now? Ano na yung mga kailangang gawin? Ano na yung mga hakbang para natin masiguro na tayo ay hindi tatamaan ng sakit na ito? Okay? So in our homes, the DOH suggested some moves, some practices on how we, okay, should be living in this new normal. For example, sabi nila, to reduce vulnerability, we should maintain healthy diet. Actually, kahit wala namang pandemic, we should all be doing this. Always hydrate, keep an exercise routine. Ngayon po na mas marami tayong oras sa ating kasalukuyang sitwasyon dahil tayo karamihan ay work from home. To reduce transmission, constant hand hygiene. Ngayon po, palaging sinasabi, hugas ng kamay para maiwasan ang COVID-19. Staying at home to reduce contact, and if it's not necessary to go out, just stay at home. Also, DOH is telling us there are ways to manage symptoms even at home, and we can always go to our barangay health emergency response team if a member of our family is showing symptoms. And this is a very good suggestion also. To ensure governance and accountability, the head of the household must set up new normal house rules. So, tayo po mismo sa ating mga sariling tahanan, meron na po dapat tayong mga paraan kung paano po tayo makakaiwas dito sa virus na ito. Okay. What about in our in schools? Ito po ay halimbawa isa panahong pwede na makabalik ang ating mga estudyante sa mga paaralan, ano. Marami-rami po yung mga naging pamantayan dito or mga guidelines dito ng DOH, at siyempre kasama pa rin po diyan na dapat talagang maging healthy tayo, magkaroon talaga ng healthy lifestyle, at physical distancing pa rin, at makipagtulungan po tayo sa ating mga barangay, at ito po asahan po natin na magkakaroon talaga ng mga pagbabago sa ating mga eskwelahan, lalong-lalo na po sa mga pamamaraan ng social distancing at yung sa sanitation and keeping our school premises clean. Yan na po ang ating magiging new normal. In our workplaces now, most importantly, pag tayo po ay makakabalik na sa ating mga opisina, sana malapit na, may mga ilang pamantayan o may ibang panuntunan din po ang DOH para dito. At kasama na nga po rito ang inaasahan natin na mga pagbabago when it comes to dealing with our coworkers, with maintaining hygiene and cleanliness in our workspaces. Mga paalala po ito, at ito na nga po kasi ang ating new normal pagkatapos nga nitong ating community quarantine. Okay? Next. So, what happened to our libraries? Okay? During community quarantine, isa po ang mga library sa mga naunang kailangang isara or to stop operations. Sadly, we weren't able to even prepare for this. Parang when the number of cases has become quite alarming, and nabigla po tayong lahat na kailangang ihinto ang napakaraming bagay. Nasuspend ang klase, parang huminto ang lahat. At kasama na nga po dyan yung pagsasara ng ating mga libraries. I remember reading reactions from librarians when this infographics, when this information were disseminated, no, nakita natin ito sa mga social media na talagang naka-mention ang libraries that under the modified enhanced community quarantine, sarado pa rin ang libraries. At lalo ngayon po, kahit general community quarantine tayo, sarado pa rin po ang ating mga libraries. But how do we deal with this? Ibig bang sabihin nito, hihinto na rin ang operations ng library? Paano po yung ating mga library users? Paano ang ating mga estudyante? Paano yung mga umaasa na makakuha ng mga importanteng impormasyon sa ating mga libraries? Ngayong, well, the physical library is closed. I would like to emphasize that. It is only the physical library that is closed. Marami po tayong pwedeng gawin remotely and to keep the library in operation. Okay? So, yun po yung pagtutuunan natin ng pansin ngayon. Okay. So, in this situation, okay, why do we need policy guidelines in this time of pandemic? Okay. We need policy guidelines because, okay, we need to establish protocols that will serve as basis for our future decision making. So, importante na meron tayong mga panuntunan na gagabay sa atin if we have to make decisions for the library, for our users, for our staff. Okay? Policy guidelines will help us explain and clarify the need to close the library. Marami po ang nagtatanong, bakit kailangang sarado ang library? Okay, bakit huminto ang operation ng library? Bakit hindi na ako nakakahiram ng libro sa library? Okay? So kailangan po may sagot tayo para diyan. Policy guidelines also serve as a continuity of operations plan. Even before, during, and after this pandemic. We need these policy guidelines para alam natin how things should proceed in our libraries. Okay, I see library policy guidelines as communication plan. Okay, we need this guidelines so that we can continue to connect, okay, with our stakeholders with our community of users. And also, library policy guidelines will define the responsibility for library operations. Ibig sabihin, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po tayo at kailangan lang na mayroong mga nakatakdang responsibilidad sa bawat isa sa atin na bahagi po ng library. So, how do we work on developing this policy guidelines? What are we supposed to remember in developing this policy guidelines? So, when working on policies, when trying to develop or formulate our policies, especially in this time of this health crisis, we should always put in our highest priority to our people, to everyone in our organization. First and foremost is prioritize staff safety and self-care. Yun po ang ating pangunahing dapat pagtuunan ng pansin. And then we may have to redefine productivity and efficiency. We're going to work in a very challenging, these are going to be very challenging times for all of us. So we may have to look at the productivity of our staff, their efficiency quite differently now. Baka po kasi hindi na maging kagaya ng dati, ang mga paraan natin dapat ng pagtingin sa kung paano ba sila dapat maging produktibo, paano ba sila dapat nag-contribute to the institution, to our organization. So we need to review those, we need to redefine those. And this is one very big concern. We should, put into high priority staying connected. This is going to be quite a big challenge for all of us. But during this time where we don't have that shared space of going to work, that way of easily communicating, easily connecting with each other, we're going to do it differently now. But it is going to be up there in our priority to stay connected. Okay, and then work. We may have to reorganize giving work assignments, reorganize the work assignments and of our staff. Each and every individual will have to be given a different assignment now. We should also be considerate of our staff and helping them find the rhythm that should work best for them. Hindi po lahat sa ngayon ay nagtatrabaho nung kagaya nung tayo ay nasa normal pa na mula 8:00 hanggang 5:00. isa po sa naging karaniwang komento, especially coming from working moms, na working from home has become extra challenging for them. So, pagtuunan po natin ito ng pansin. Okay? We should also consider the effects of the more use of technology. Sa ngayon po, because staying connected means that we have to be online or be in a different platform. So, marami po tayong kailangang alalayan or turuan on how they can best can make use of this technology, this communications technology that we have now. Um, for work, well, to be to be to be have this in our priorities, okay, and make it clear to our staff, to everyone in the organization. We should still continue to conduct meetings and strategic planning online na nga lang. But I think this is the time, and I can hear it, or I know of many librarians making a comment on this, that they have attended more meetings and planning now that we are doing work remotely, or working from home, because yeah, libraries are closed. So we still need to continue this, and there are lots of platforms you can make use of. Okay, so drafting a library policy guidelines, what should be in there? Ano yung dapat nandoon? Ano yung dapat na isasama natin para, sabi nga, ay matulungan tayo when we have to make decisions for our libraries. So, in preparing for this webinar, um, I made it part of my research to check on the IFLA website, because I know in here are key resources, on how libraries, okay, around the globe are dealing with this health emergency. So if you were planning on working on your, or drafting your own policy guidelines, you can check on this IFLA website, and you'll be able to get lots of ideas here. You can learn from some of the best practices of libraries from other countries. So I would suggest you check on this. Okay. So you can also check the ALA website. They actually have a plan, a checklist if you're planning for the reopening of your libraries. I know marami sa ating mga librarians, ito yung ating concern ngayon. Makakapagbukas pa ba tayo ng ating mga libraries? At kung magbubukas tayo ng libraries, ano yung mga dapat nating paghandaan? Okay, and I think this checklist by IFLA, is a good source, of the topics you may have to include when you're drafting that library policy guidelines. And also the Library of Congress, they have this a good source on returning to library, and continuing with the on-site preparations. Just check on these websites and you'll get lots of ideas here. Okay. So, there's another one. One of the very first library, or one of the very first country that posted their strategic actions in dealing with this pandemic, no, their libraries specifically, is the Australian libraries. And they have this checklist also of things to do. And when you have to um, start working on reopening libraries. You can also check this uh, website of the Australian Libraries Association. So, so how do we prepare for this draft of library policy guidelines? Here, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions made these suggestions on how or what we should include, when we have to prepare, okay, our reopening of the library. So they suggested that we reopen by pace, meaning hindi full operation kaagad. And we follow this here in UP. We have to make sure that everything is in place. We have to make sure that the building, the physical library, is ready for the reopening. And then it's also suggested that we set limits on the number of people who can use the library at any given time. So, bahagi na rin po ito ng ating social distancing measures. Okay? We have to make sure that building safety and cleaning protocols are in place also. Um, okay, this is going to be quite a challenge for us, librarian. We have to plan for minimal or no face-to-face library transactions. How can we do that? Paano naman ang ating mga library users? Okay. And then it is also suggested that we develop protocols in dealing with anyone showing symptoms. Okay. It has become now our responsibility to be able to deal with anyone coming to our libraries showing symptoms and how to deal with them. We have to be very careful about this. Okay, maybe we can learn from the guidelines set by other libraries. Maybe we can refer to our health services if we have them in our institutions, in our universities, in our schools, in our offices. Okay, we can seek for their guidance on this. We have to build and capacitate our staff on safety protocols. Okay. Isa po ito sa kailangan talaga nating ding pagtuunan ng pansin. Paano natin masisigurado ng ating mga staff and everyone in the organization knows of health and safety protocols. Okay. Okay. And it is also highly suggested that we continue to promote our online services. Okay, as part of the new normal, we will be operating on a different platform now and working with our online services. Okay, should be up there in our list of priorities. Okay, and so even if with these policies for reopening, okay, and these guidelines for reopening, we should also have a contingency plan just in case we may have to return to lockdown or yung pangangailangan na magsasara tayo uli. Sana naman hindi. Okay, but still, we need to be ready. Okay? So, how we did it here in UP Diliman? First, it would help if you come up with an outline. Okay? I mentioned kanina where you can, get references in terms of the topics you might want to include in your library policy. So for this policy here in UP Diliman Library, we came up with this outline, which we hope actually covers everything that should be covered in terms of um, having these guidelines if we are to reopen our libraries here. The UP Diliman Library is a system of libraries, so we have one main library and more than I think close to 40 unit and college libraries. So in here we included a rationale. So why we are drafting this policy guidelines, para saan po ito, para kanino, ano po yung mga naging basehan namin, okay, in drafting this policy guidelines. So we also included here the general guidelines and the scope and coverage. We included here also a timeline of our reopening by pace. So, importante po ito dahil hindi pa rin po natin alam kung ano na nga po ba yung magiging sitwasyon. Are we going until when this GCQ is? Magkakaroon pa ba ng modified general community quarantine? So, importante po that we keep a or we have this reopening by phase. And then we have to work on organizing staff assignment and work and task of our library staff. So meron po kami nung tinatawag na skeleton workforce, and then those were going to work from home. And then we also have to include here the services that the library will be suspending, those services that we are offering remotely or online. One very important part of this guidelines are the protocols for the new normal. So we give emphasis on maintaining social distancing, handling library materials, particularly those book returns, and then we also have to be concerned with building safety and sanitation. So we included them. We also make this part of our guidelines to have a communication plan so that we can continue communicating with our community here in UP. We also look into reviewing our policies on library resources management. This is going to be very important because operating in the new normal will have, of course, effect on how we are going to manage our resources in the library. And then we also, of course, include how we are supposed to be dealing with continuing professional development for our staff. So staff training and development. Okay, so what what were the basis? Okay, for creating these guidelines. This could be laws, national and local directives from the lead agency like the ATF, and then we can also look at the institutional guidelines we have in our own institution. So ito po yung mga pinagbasihan namin. Dito po sa UP, nagkaroon kami ng memos about temporary work arrangement, for example, and then um, some reiterations on how to curb community transmission. So ito po yung mga pinanggalingan din kung saan namin ibinase yung aming mga naging guidelines. So part of our general statements or our general guidelines, this will define overall policies on the more important aspects of library operations, including staffing, office functions, and the responsibility for decision making.